This is the planning board for February 9th, 2022. That's we need to start with the roll call. Take attendance.
Sure. Mark Sprague.
Here.
Peter Driscoll.
I'm here. Hi, everyone.
Mike Gore.
Present.
Eric Nealand. And Jim Barr.
Here.
Okay. Let's see here. According to the agenda, the first thing is I'll review correspondence and the planners report for updates.
Sure. So the first thing is just related to the master plan updates. I've been working on some grant applications and scopes of work for a request for quotes to better understand kind of how much certain discrete tasks related to the master plan may cost. So I've submitted for, I think it's $30,000 from the regional planning organization, and then an expression of interest through the municipal vulnerabilities preparedness program. So we'll see what we can put together. I may also look into the housing choice grants. I know that once you are a designated community, you're able to apply for these capital grants, which is how we got the Spectacle Hill drainage program or drainage improvements constructed last year. So that may also be another resource for master planning, but it's clear that we will need some technical support with at least a few of these chapters. So we're moving forward on that. Century Mill Estates, I still have not received anything from the applicant. So I'm still waiting on a signed copy of that joint check agreement before we can provide any of the bond funds to the engineer.
Yeah.
So I think that I included some of those emails under correspondence, so you can kind of see that I've tried to lay out a pretty clear timeline to let them know that, you know, we're coming up against some pretty clear timelines in the next week or so here. So I don't know how much leniency the town can give after next week.
Yeah, and at the meeting we gave them a pretty clear schedule too. So
yeah. I've spoken more with other staff in town to figure out kind of what the select board schedule may be, just to make sure that you know, if it's not us holding him back, maybe it's going to be another board. Try to communicate both board timelines to him. So we'll see what happens in the coming days. But I have drafted up an article for town meeting related to road acceptance for those 3 roads, so that we're prepared just in case.
Okay.
We can talk about that later on too.
Yeah.
And then 711 to 713 Main Street has a new owner. This is the parcel that holds the kitchen sink candle company. There's a barn, and then there's that the newly painted blue dwelling. So this new owner is excited about kitchen sink, wants them to stay, just looking to renovate the barn and renovate the blue dwelling, not for residents, but for just other, you know, retail or office space opportunities. So I'm looking into their existing special permit just to make sure that there's kind of a path forward for them, though it's clear that there are a few other issues on site as well related to wetlands resource areas. So we're been meeting with him. Multiple departments have been meeting with the owners and their architects to try to figure out what a good path forward is and how we can help them out. And then on February 22nd is going to be our meeting with, or my meeting with the advisory committee to discuss the budget. Don't know if the board typically attends that as well or not. I'm happy to send along the agenda and the Zoom link and any materials I might have in preparation of that. But I was wondering if that's a meeting that you all would like to attend.
I think I usually try to attend. Is on the 15th or the 22nd?
It's actually, I think I
It got
wrote down the
moved.
15th, but it is
Yeah.
on the 22nd. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
If there are a few members that are interested in going, what I'll do is just post it as, I'll post a planning board agenda just in case. And then we'll be covered.
Typically, at most, the chairman goes, so
Okay, that's good to know.
I think it's
Yeah.
fine. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not usually
right, well,
something
that's-
people jump to go to, so.
Yeah. All right, well, that's all I had.
Okay. Good. Okay, so we have minutes from the January 26th meeting. Anybody review them and any corrections?
It looks good to me.
Okay,
I'll make
Yeah.
a motion to approve the meeting minutes from, I see. So is it, you had on the agenda the 26th, but on the minutes is from the 19th.
Ah, thank you. It's supposed to
Yeah.
be the 26th.
okay,
So I'll make a motion to approve the planning board minutes from January 26th, 2022.
do we need to add an amendment to change the date on those minutes? To correct the date?
I'll just have the motion be as amended.
Okay.
I'll change that.
Perfect.
Second.
And those in favor, Mike Gore,
Aye.
Mark Sprague,
Aye.
Eric Neeland,
Aye.
and Pete Driscoll.
Aye.
Okay. So we have about 20 minutes, so let's skip down to the business part of the meeting. We'll pick out some of the things that we can talk about there. Okay, the first thing is vote to recommend the appointment of James Barr to the planning board until the next annual town meeting. Any discussion or motion, or and this goes to the selectmen to finalize the appointment.
Right, so after an affirmative vote here, I'll send the select board a memo and see if we can get an item on the agenda for their meeting on hopefully the 17th, but I'm not
Okay.
sure if they have time. But.
Okay,
I will make a motion to recommend James Barr to be a full member of the planning board.
Second.
And those in favor, Mark Sprague,
aye.
Eric Neeland,
Aye.
Mike Gore,
Aye.
and Peter Driscoll.
Aye.
Jim, I assume that you're comfortable with that?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Because I should have asked that before we voted on it. Okay.
Too late, you're here.
Actually,
No worries, no worries.
we've recommended you, so you're in now.
I'm all in, all in.
You're officially official now.
Well, it's got to be formally appointed by the selectmen, and then he's
Yeah.
officially a full-blown member here. Okay, why don't let's see here. We'll leave the A&R town meeting articles, we'll leave, okay. Should we go down to discuss the Masterworks project? To design and construct a roundabout at the intersection of Bushmill, Green Road, and 117?
Sure. So I guess this was preempted from the there was a ribbon cutting for the MassWorks Awards last week, maybe it was, or maybe the week before. So I was thinking it's a good time to kind of review those concept plans and get some comments into the DPW and their consultants at Beta Group prior to design plans moving forward. I know that if you get much beyond 25%, it becomes harder to actually start to make larger changes to the plan.
Yeah.
So I just drafted kind of just brainstormed a bunch of ideas, bunch of thoughts. I'm happy to walk through it or answer questions or scale it back as you might wish. But I think, I mean, it's a pretty important project, and I think this is, advances a lot of transportation goals, includes, walk to school infrastructure, safe routes to school, and it also connects with a municipal property. So it's a pretty important project. I just thought, this is one of those things that the planning board should be able to be involved in.
Yeah, so just for anybody who decides to follow along at home, do you want to just walk through the memo?
Sure, yeah. So would you like me to pull it up on the screen, or what's the best way to do this? I can just talk through, I have it printed out in front of me too, so.
You can just talk through it, I think
Yeah.
is probably fine.
Okay, so I started off just noting that there are some nearby developments that I would want the engineer to be aware of. So the Tadmore subdivision will be complete this year, I'm sure. And then I wanted to make sure they're aware of the potential for a mixed use development right at that corner, so that they're considering those households into their traffic counts and considering the potential addition of 5,000 square feet of retail space. It may change kind of the geometry of what they're thinking.
Mhm.
And then I had a number of comments related to pedestrian infrastructure. It looked like the concept plans had pretty limited sidewalk areas. There really were just 4 sections of sidewalk instead of really east to west, north to south, both sides of the road sidewalks, which is what I would be expecting here. So I pointed to a few different plans that the town has, the Complete Streets Prioritization Plan and the ADA Self-Evaluation Plan, that note the priority of having sidewalks on 117. There's also a truck apron to help larger vehicles take a right-hand turn onto Green Road from the westbound lane on 117. So I want to make sure that pedestrians that might be up on that sidewalk are still safe. I'm not sure how they might choose to separate that out. I also don't know how they might choose to dissuade cars from just taking a fast, wide turn there. So if the purpose of this roundabout is really to slow down traffic, how do we make sure that other vehicles aren't taking advantage of that apron there?
Yeah, it's almost like Green Road needs to be swung around a little bit so it's coming in a little more at a right angle.
Yeah, that's a good point,
Yeah.
right? It could also be kind of teed off there.
Yeah, I've always looked at this plan and said, how do you make that turn that you're talking about without, either going over that area or, cutting into the westbound lane on 117.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
So.
Yeah, I'll add that in. And then I also noted that there are two crosswalks that have these pedestrian refuge islands, which allows pedestrians to just cross one lane of traffic, pause, and then cross another safely.
Mhm.
And I was recommending that be included along Green Road as well as the eastern side of that roundabout, just to make sure that pedestrians can safely cross at that point too. Also they probably weren't aware of this, the potential for a mixed use development, which I think would probably create that demand for a 4th crosswalk there.
Yeah. Are there plans to put pedestrian crossing, yield signs in the people?
That was another comment I had, right?
Okay.
Whether it's the rapid flashing beacons or those pods, the pedestrian actuated warning devices.
Yeah.
So some description of signage. Of course, they're just a concept plan, so they're not quite there, but I would want to make sure that something like that is added, particularly because there's a school right there.
Right.
Do you know if the parking lot in front of Classic Pizza that's on Main Street. Is access to that going to get cut off, or will they be able to drive right across like the kind of that brick rumble strip that they show in the plans?
That was another comment too, how it is important to tighten up those curb cuts so that vehicles are slowing down and making deliberate turns, but that's actually, I don't think I put in how a patron there would maybe turn left onto 117. And if that rumble strip, or it could be I don't know if it's like a stamped asphalt product, or if it is vegetation or median, but you're right, it's not clear if someone can drive over it.
Yeah.
So we'll add that in. It's also not clear, there's a residence right behind that pizza shop. It's not quite clear how they may be able to take a left-hand turn out of their home onto Bushmill Road, or if they would just have to continue to use the Classic Pizza parking lot area. So then I went on to describe a few comments related to bicycle infrastructure, just looking for dedicated bicycle lanes or separated bike lanes, or perhaps they want to move or consider using the space dedicated for sidewalks as more of a shared use path. I think there was some comment that I heard at the public input session last April that bikes were going to be encouraged to use the sidewalks, but the sidewalks really do need to be open and available for pedestrians. So I want to make sure that cyclists have a safe place to go around the roundabout as well. And I included kind of an image of other roundabouts that have these bike lanes that are worked into the traffic flow of the roundabout itself, though the issue there is probably that it's going to take up too much space. And so a lot more, more easements would need to be required as part of the work. But I think it's still worth having the DPW's engineer kind of comment on that. I'm seeing this project as, any kind of comment we can get on traffic infrastructure and bicycle infrastructure, even if we don't actually implement it, would be useful for future projects elsewhere in town. So let me see. So also with consideration of space, I know you can ask MassDOT for exemptions, design exemptions. So it's possible that we could say, it's okay to have more narrow travel lanes if the speed limit is, a certain, it's 35 rather than 45, or if there's less traffic on the road itself. So unfortunately, a lot of Mass DOT's complete streets specifications, design specifications are really more geared toward very urban areas. And so it's harder for a more rural town to implement complete streets when we have to just use so much more space. So I think making sure that the project is functional but still rural is going to be important. Other comments relate to making sure there's more landscaping all along the projects, asking about whether the interior of the roundabout is intended to be vegetated or if it's going to be stamped. I know that there are some DPWs that are thinking more along the lines of concerns of snow storage or concerns of maintenance, and also understanding that there could be a lot of heat radiating from 117, so vegetation might not hold, it might just not take. So I want to get some comment on that. And then looking at making sure that all utilities that may be impacted are put underground. I don't know if this is a true full depth mill and overlay, or if it's a full reconstruction of paving, which would probably determine the depth of conduit that they could install. So it would be preferable if they could put lines underground as is in our subdivision rules and regs, but we'll see. And then I just offered any support that we can provide in terms of public outreach. If they need help with communicating the benefits of the project to the businesses or to residents in the area or to the town as a whole as we proceed through the different design phases and through construction. I think that would be something that would make sense for our office to help with.
Okay.
Valerie, did you, I'm sorry if I missed it. Did you talk about classic pizza?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed
A
that
little
part.
bit. No, only in terms of wanting to make sure that they have tighter curb cuts and making sure that access, ingress and egress is not
Yeah,
impacted.
I'm just looking at the plan and I'm just wondering where they come in and out now. Like
Where they
looking at
come
the
in
plan.
now or in the concept
No,
plan?
in the concept plan.
So it shows two kind of gray areas, two aprons to the west of Route 117. I think those are intended to indicate driveways, which would mean that they're really cutting off much of the that corner.
What gray area? Oh, like there's like a little line you're saying?
Let me pull it up.
Because I see like the bricked area where they're trying to guide the traffic.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know Frank Chiodo's land goes
Oh,
to the corner. I'm just wondering how their access
I'm
is.
sorry. Yes, so I did not link you to the correct plan. There's another concept plan that was presented in April that shows,
Oh, okay.
yeah, so I'm sorry, Eric. It shows two driveways kind of to the west of those
Okay.
parcels. So
Yeah,
I think
okay.
that they're intending that cars would access it only through 117.
Can you bring that
Okay.
up real quick?
It's actually within a YouTube video.
Oh, okay.
So
Oh, okay.
I can't quite pull it out.
Okay.
But it's
you
about
just-
20,
yeah.
25 minutes in. If you're
Maybe
if you're
just send it
interested.
out after the meeting.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes. The link is in the packets.
But the link in the packet is the old plan, is what you said, right?
I think right underneath that there should be a link to the public info session.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I'll take a look.
Yeah. So would you like to see, how would you like to go forward with this? Would you like to see another copy of this letter that's kind of cleaned up with a few of the comments that you've made tonight? Or review at the next planning board meeting?
I mean, I think you got our comments. I think you'll, I guess when you get it updated, just send it out and, but I don't.
Okay.
And
Okay,
I don't
that
think
sounds
we
good.
had significant rewrites or any significant concerns there, so.
Okay.
Valerie, has there been a traffic study done in that area?
Yes, part of the work that Beta Group did in the spring was a traffic study. They were considering whether to do traffic lights or a roundabout, and so I think that traffic study helped with that decision. Though I don't know if they may choose to do more traffic counts. They may choose to kind of review it again, which is why if you're asking about it, if they had considered the potential for that mixed use development at that time, they did not, but I would want the engineer to know of that potential and be able to make comment. I believe, go ahead.
I mean, I think it would because of the fact that there's a lot more traffic than there was a year ago.
Yeah.
So to speak, you know what I mean? And I think it might be good to have another traffic study done just to see what's going through there now.
Yeah, it was this spring considered typical traffic at that point.
It was 2021, so schools were back in session. I don't know the exact
Okay.
dates of the study.
Yeah, I don't know how many people were commuting at that point versus.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. Is the circle gonna be, it's gonna be like the one at Route 2 and 70 where it's kind of just slope sides of the trucks just go straight across, or is it gonna be yeah, a little bit sharper to actually make them go around the circle?
I can include that as well, just to ask about the treatment of the roundabout itself.
Yeah, I mean, if they're just, you know, kind of cutting that corner, it doesn't serve nearly the purpose that it's meant for, so.
What is the location of the roundabout that you're referring to again?
On Route 70, right, just south of Route 2. I forget the
Car dealerships right there.
yeah, there's a car dealership and just and the soccer fields are right there. But if you look, you know, if you look there, you can see we're just, you know, trucks just kind of, you know, I don't know if it's undersized, so the trucks have a hard time making the, you know,
That's one of
making
the
it around
smallest
there,
ones
so-
I've seen.
yeah. So I don't know if that's what the problem there is, or how it was constructed or something, but you can see where a lot of trucks just end up going partially over the center island.
Okay. Can add that in too.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments or questions from the board? No, okay. Good, so that's good. Guess the next, you know, just going through the business here. Actually, it's basically 7:30 now, so we can start on the backland special permit and common driveway special permit for 89 to 91 South Bolton Road. Let's see here. So get to the public hearing notice. Need a few more monitors to keep all of this. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 11, notice is hereby given that the Bolton Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, February 9th, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. via Zoom video communications to hear and act upon the application of Sarah and Christopher Slade of Bolton, Mass. The applicant is seeking a backland lot special permit and a common driveway special permit pursuant to sections 250-13 and 250-17 of the Code of the Town of Bolton. Property is located at 89 to 91 South Bolton Road in the residential zoning district, identified on Assessor's Map 3C as parcels 18, 20.1, and 27. The proposed development consists of a five-lot subdivision. Okay. Is the applicant or the engineer here to walk us through this?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, this is Chris. Val, did you get a hold of Jack? He said he would be online if you'd like him to present this, or I can.
I don't see him online. I had sent him over the agenda and he had the public hearing notice.
I'm here somewhere.
There
I'm
you
not sure.
are.
I think I'm tied in here somewhere. I'm not sure if you guys can see
do
me
see
or
you.
hear me.
Yes, I apologize. Is it possible for you to rename yourself?
Yeah, you're showing up as admin.
Okay. This is the first time I've ever done a Zoom meeting, so somebody might have to walk me through this thing.
Tip your screen forward, Jack, and we can see you other than the top. There you are. Other than the
Okay.
top of your head.
All
Rename
right.
you.
My shiny bald head. Okay.
That's right. You're blinding us.
All right. Like I said, this is the first time I've ever done this, so new technology, I guess. Can everybody hear me? I guess that's the first question.
Yes,
All right. What I'm going to try and do is give you guys a brief overview of what the project is, and then I'm going to let Chris kind of walk through the history of it. This parcel, or several parcels, actually have been pulled together off on South Bolton Road. There are 2 existing houses on the property, and what is being proposed is 5 lots, one of which is a backland lot, the other 4 are Form A lots. And then there's another parcel that's going to be left over, which is about 20 acres. And the intent is going to be a conservation easement on that. Most people driving through the area, probably the first thing that jumps up is the big open field, and that is the area that's going to be underneath the conservation easement. I've been working with Chris on this for a number of years. I'm going to say probably 7 or 8 years. And this is the fruition of all the work we've put into it. Basically, what we're proposing to do is keep the 2 existing house locations that are there, and then add these other lots in. We've proposed to use a common driveway to serve the lots, just to cut down the number of driveways that come out to the street. It doesn't have to be done that way. We could do it with individual driveways, but we thought the common driveway was the best way to go about doing it. The common driveway, other than about the first 100 feet going in from the
Do you
street.
mind if can I interrupt for a minute? I was looking
Sure.
on our packet, Valerie, and I can't open up the plans. I don't know if other people can. I don't know if it's just me, but can you present them at least? Valerie?
Yeah, can we get them presented? I can open them, so it's just you, Eric.
Okay.
Eric,
know
you must
why.
be like me. I'm kind of computer.
No, I open. I don't know if for some reason maybe if I download instead of trying to open it directly, maybe if I download it and then open it, maybe that'll work. But
Sure, sorry about that, Eric. Jack, would you like to share your screen? Would you like me to share mine to show them the plans?
Yeah, if you could do that.
Sure.
There's actually 4 sheets of drawings. The first 2 basically deal with the lot layout on sheet 1. Sheet 2 is the lot layout with the wetlands flagging that shows where the wetlands are located on the property. And to get back to the common driveway portion of it, because they kind of go hand in hand, is the common driveway, as I started to say, on the first 100 feet is the only part of it that doesn't basically follow an existing cart road that's been there for God knows how long, but it kind of meanders back through the open field back to include the 5 building lots that would be developed. The area is relatively flat. As a matter of fact, elevation change on the common driveway section over almost 700 feet is less than 6 feet in elevation, which lends itself perfectly to the use of pervious pavement, which we've suggested to use on this project. Pervious pavement works great if you have good underlying permeable soils, which we have. You don't want to use it in an area of high traffic, which we're not going to because we're just serving some houses. And then the fact that you don't want steep grades because you don't want the water to run off the pavement. You want it to immediately go down through the pavement. And that's kind of the design we've come up with. It's a very environmentally friendly design in that the water basically, as soon as it hits the pavement, goes down through and perks down through the soil almost immediately. And we're not roped into building big detention or retention basins, pipe systems and whatnot to dispose of the water that runs off of the roadway. Pervious pavement has been used in Massachusetts for over 40 years. The one that everybody may or may not be familiar with, but was one of the first installations, is down at Walden Pond. The parking lot down there was installed almost 40 years ago, and it still functions fine. In this situation, as I had mentioned, we have primarily underlying soils of sands and coarse gravels. All of the perks that we've done for the roadway and for the septic systems all perk at less than 2 minutes an inch. And we have in excess of 5 feet of separation between the bottom of the proposed roadway and the modeling elevation of water elevations. So, it's the biggest issue with trying to design pervious pavement is there really is no cut and dried engineering specs that say how to do it. Even though MassDOT, the Department of Transportation, has used it in a number of areas, they don't have any specific design criteria. So what I did with this is I took what MassDOT had, what the EPA has issued for recommendations, and I've included some of that information in the package that was submitted to you guys. He also looked at the state of New Hampshire has some reasonably good specs, and so does the state of Michigan. So kind of pulled all that information together and used that in the overall design of the storage area of the stone underneath the paved area and some of the other issues that arise during putting it all together. So with that, I think what I'd like to do is, rather than jumping into the actual design requirements, I did get a letter from your consultant and I responded to all of their questions, but I'm sure that was I just received the letter this morning. I responded back this morning. I'm sure she didn't have a chance to look at it at this point. So I thought maybe it'd be best to have Chris talk about the lot layout and how we've arrived at this and what his intention is over the approval process of the project. So Chris, I think I'm kicking it over to you.
Thank you. Okay, basically, I came in to speak with the board, and I've had a couple of years of my life disappear here while I was sick, but I'm doing better, thank you. And pointed out that we could do this under your bylaws. It still will be under your bylaws, as a matter of fact. Using the gerrymander rule that you have in place, a lot has to be a backland lot or over 4.5 acres. So therefore, what we could do is you look to the left-hand side, you see the open space logo. We could divide this whole area out in the back in big chunks with small necks, 25 feet, back to the house lots as they exist. And be above that 4.5 acres. Your bylaw also allows you to waive the gerrymander requirement if you think it is in best interest. So therefore, we have a housing package on lot 2, on lot, oh God, it's so small, I can't read it, lot 4, and then the one out and back at lot 1. If we waive the gerrymander, it'll be as you see it. Most we would do, if you did not care to, would be have some little necks and chop up the back field. Now, we're going to take everything from that dark line right down the middle and put that as a stone wall. Everything on that side will be under the conservation easement. And I think Valerie has some comments from the trust. We will use some of that land for the backland lot acreage requirement, one small sewage system, and some frontage. But nothing will be built on it. And anyone who takes the lots takes this land with the restriction already in place. So although they own it, they can't do much with it. They can't do anything with it, as a matter of fact. So this seemed to me the more sensible way to do it. Now, we say it's a 5-house subdivision. Because I'm altering lots, I am creating lots. But if you look at the front, you'll see 89 is a small cape, and 91 is the house you see along the stone wall. Those exist. We are only adding 3 more. So that's basically the layout of the thing. We've been able to design it so that everything is out of the wetlands. Almost everything is out of the 25-foot requested turtle sunning strip along the wetlands. We have one area up here in the back that goes along a ridge that's been there since people were farming this in 1800. And it's a trail, and it's just a little bit narrow. Will probably be 22 feet on each side, but there's no sense. It's the most practical way to get there. And we'll talk to conservation about that. What else can I tell you? Let's see, Valerie, you've got some stuff from the trust on their view on the proposed conservation easement, I think.
First, I would like to ask for when you're able to provide my office with a copy of the letter or the comments that were provided to Places Associates, just so I can
Yes,
review that. And
Jack was having trouble sending that. And I was going to ask if you got it, because I never did. But I'm pretty computer illiterate and I might have missed it. But I will ask Jack, if he's not still with us, to please resend that tomorrow morning, both you and I, and we'll follow through and make sure it comes through.
Yeah, I'll give it a shot tomorrow. I'm currently in Florida. I have a little bit of a trouble emailing things, but I'll try and resend it again to you tomorrow.
For the board to see as well. So, but yes, related to what Chris was just referring to, I did get a call from the chair of the Bolton Conservation Trust, and he let me know that they have walked the area that is intended to be conserved, and they are very much in support of that being deeded to the Conservation Trust. And he noted that it backs up to some wetland resource areas, and the field itself is an important conservation area. So it was good to get that confirmed by the trust, to know that this has been discussed and agreed upon, and that it is a good section of land to be preserved. I don't know. Yeah.
Go ahead, excuse me.
No, I was just going to say, I have heard there are other comments. I don't know, what the chair or the board how you might want to organize this with, thoughts from fire and DPW and the comments from the peer reviewer, as well as residents as well.
Yes, I mean, the peer reviewer letter, I think Jack had said he had addressed all the issues there, so I guess we just need a copy of that response, and then we'll take away from there. I didn't think, I think DPW, I think right here. Yeah, it looked like you showed the driveway to the edge of the right of way, not to the edge of the pavement. And he was questioning whether the turnaround was sufficient. I don't know, Jack, have you seen the comments from DPW?
Yeah, I did see all that. We showed the the driveway on the plan to reflect the 50-foot required width at the property line. I mean, obviously the pavement's going to extend out to South Bolton Road. It's somewhat irregular shape along the roadway there, but it will extend out to there. The turnarounds are sized right out of the regulations. I mean, if someone feels we need a bigger one, I guess we could look at adding some space somewhere, but based on the common driveway regulations, it's there. I know the regulations have been in there a long time because at least 30, maybe it's 40 years ago, I was on the planning board and wrote the regulations. So, and I don't think you guys have changed it since then. Depending on what size trucks, fire trucks and stuff, maybe it's not big enough anymore, but if somebody feels it should be revised, we can take a look at it. One of the other review comments from your consultant was the radiuses of the intersecting driveways for trucks to get in and around there. Again, I told in the letter that I wrote back to them was that we'll take a look at that and possibly make them larger based on the truck size that she suggested we should use. So we'll take a look at that.
Okay. And then there's some comments from the fire chief about the distance from water source. I don't know if you saw those and have
we haven't looked at water source, and maybe Chris can jump in when I'm done, but there's nothing that I know of in the regulations that require it for something of this size. And we typically look into, whether it's a cistern or something when we're doing a subdivision. As Chris said, we're adding 3 houses here. I personally, didn't look at it only because I didn't think if it was of an area of that much concern, but Chris knows a whole lot more about the fire department than I have, because he's been on the fire department for years and knows everybody there. And I don't know, there is a fire pond adjacent to the property that I'm sure the fire department would use. It can't be more than, Chris, what, 200 feet away? Maybe not, maybe less.
Yeah, it's right. It basically is right across from the far end of the field where you see the open space, and that far end sort of goes up and does a bit jag. But right on the inside of that corner right there, I dug a pond because my father always wanted one there. And before he died, I was able to had bought enough equipment I could dig it. And we put in a dry hydrant right there. And it gets tested periodically, just about every time some idiot drives into it. They test it, make sure it still works. And they've got hundreds of thousands of gallons there. That's a big pond. Yeah, they could pump there for days before they made any difference. So it seems sort of stupid to put a little, for 3 houses, to put a little puddle out there in a concrete box.
Yeah, no, he's saying the distance back to the house on lot 1 is over 1,000 feet from the water supply. So he's recommending fire protection system be installed for that residence.
No, we've got, if we're using a common drive, I think we have 1,800 feet from the street. And I'm quite sure we're less than 1,800 feet to the water source.
Okay, well, need to review his letter and either correct him and give him a revised letter, or we need to review his recommendations on it.
Okay. All right, I had never seen those. They hadn't come by me, but I'll get with, we'll go over this and see what we can do.
Okay.
I
Okay,
do owe some additional information to your consultant. She wanted some more topo information, and obviously I'm looking at, radiuses on the driveways and whatnot too so I presume either the next meeting or maybe the second meeting from tonight, we can have all this stuff tucked together and hopefully have it finished up and answer, any of the other concerns of the fire department, and everybody else.
Yeah.
So we'll plan on doing that.
sounds good. Okay, so from the board, any questions, comments, concerns? Yeah, okay. Surprising. Okay. Any questions or comments from the audience? Just make sure you identify who your name and address, and keep the comments focused on the development here.
Mr. Chairman, my hand's raised.
Yeah, okay.
This is Jonathan Keep, 14 Manor Road. I sent a letter with an image. My concern, and it's a long-standing concern, is Mr. Slade and his family have 3 large dumps on their property.
Guys, hey, dinner.
And those dumps, pose, some problems, I think, for the town, for the neighbors. There is, we don't, in any of our zoning, in any of our zones, we do not allow dumping, not in industrial, not in business, and not in residential. So we have these large dumps that are filled with old vehicles, equipment, scrap metal, above ground storage tanks, tires, trailers, and various debris. So, one concern is that these dumps are an attractive nuisance. I know from my son who attended Florence Sawyer School that there's every generation of school kids there know about these dumps, and they've gone back there and played on the equipment. And so that's something that's kind of dangerous to have so close to Florence Sawyer School. There's a trail from the soccer fields to these dumps. I'm also concerned about what if fluids from the vehicles get into the soil and how that affects groundwater. Could affect groundwater. These dumps are within the 200-foot wetland buffer of Millbrook Stream, which flows into Danforth Brook, which flows into Hudson. So, there is a potential for leaking and contamination of wells and of a water course. And I just don't know if the Slade family has insurance that would cover an eventual, a leak like that. So I just think it's important, as we're discussing this 5-lot subdivision, that we're talking about how the family, as a condition of approving this subdivision, how the family is going to clean up these 3 dumps and come into compliance with our zoning bylaws.
So
May I respond?
Let me just, so I'm not sure legally that we can tie approval on one set of lots to requiring work to be done on some other set of lots.
My point would be a point of order.
Yes.
Okay, we have a precedent on this. Mr. Bemis had literally an open face dump, including household rubbish over on Berlin Road. He was selling land on Fry Road to builders. We did not move against him because it was a separate piece of land. as soon as he wanted to sell the land on Berlin Road, we were very quick to submit him a letter, forget it, unless you can clean up the dump. Mr. Pace bought the land and did a very good job of cleaning up, satisfied us and the Conservation Commission that some of the stuff was sliding into a pond. And I would say the same thing should apply here. Now, as to the term dump, I know dump is a term that uses on several things. A fuel dump is not what the military wants to have the enemy to destroy or throw away. There is nothing out there that is trash. There is steel that is in to be recycled. Vehicles, tires can be used for fuel and the rest. And I don't want to get into this tonight, except I will inform you that DEP is aware of us. They have been inspected and said for the time being, we are in compliance. So therefore, in both properties, we've been using this way for about at least 50 years. So I would ask the board to set these matters aside as a point of law. I'll be happy to give you more information at another time when it's appropriate. And yes, this has dragged out, I looked it up today, for about 10 years. Mr. Keep has had this problem. And I guess it wouldn't have been such a problem if he taught his children to respect other people's property.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
I'd
not,
just
I
like
mean,
to respond. So, Mr. Chairman, yeah, I'd just like to, so Mass DEP has visited the dump at 0 South Bolton Road. This is the extensive dump next to the cemetery. And this is the one that school children have been visiting for generations. There's also another dump, 96 South Bolton Road, and another dump at 118 South Bolton Road. These are all properties owned by Mr. Slade and his family. The dump at 118 is directly across from the proposed subdivision. I don't think we should be subdividing land and selling it to people, new families to Bolton without them being aware of what they're buying into and what the conditions are around them. So if we're going to sell lots like this, they need to know that there are dumps across the street, hidden in the woods, so they can make an educated decision.
so John, I don't think we can tie, our approval or disapproval of this
So what's that
subdivision to
date?
something that's on other lots. I think if you have a concern that there are dumps there the DEP doesn't know about, you should contact them directly. I don't know that the building inspector would be, who's kind of the zoning enforcement officer would be the person to, if these are there and really violate our bylaws, then he would be the person to talk to about inspecting and bringing in enforcement action if that's appropriate.
No, I think we all have to have a part to play in this process. And I think the planning board has a part to play. I think the Conservation Commission, the building inspector. It's hard to get the Board of Health because Mr. Slade is on the Board of Health. There's a conflict of interest there.
I object to that.
I'm not.
Okay,
My
okay,
colleagues have
Okay.
acted with DEP with the highest respect for the law.
Okay, Jonathan, you've had your say. I think there are other avenues that you need, if you want to pursue this, that may be more appropriate. I think, as Chris has said, we have precedent in town where we haven't done this, so.
This is the place where it should come up. So Mark, you're saying
Yeah.
that you don't think you have the ability, but have you asked town council about that for an opinion?
No, we have not.
Okay, so it's important.
There are other places,
Say things like
Jonathan,
that.
Jonathan, I think there are other places where I'd like, I think the board would like to hold developers responsible from one project to another, but by law, we can't. So, I mean, this is very similar. So, I mean, we can check with town council.
I disagree, and I'd like to hear from town council about this. It just sounds like you're giving your opinion and putting your head in the sand. You've talked to neighbors, a neighbor of these dumps, and you heard their concerns a few years ago. You told me about that. So it's just, you have a neighborhood that's kind of scared to bring this up, but they are very concerned about it. They're surrounded by Slade property and the Slade family. They want living next to a large dump.
I didn't think I was that scary, and none of them have ever come to me with concerns. I wish they would, because we'll do something to make them happy.
I don't think they've come to any planning board members either. So I think I think, I mean, they're like I said, I mean, we can check with town council. We've blown the town council budget already, so why not keep going? But I'd be surprised if we can tie approval on, to something like that, but we can check on that. Okay. Then there's
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
I have a quick question. Has there been any type of water testing from the neighbors in that area, Mr. Keith?
That's a good question. I mean, I think it would be important to look, to test water from the area where the subdivision's proposed before moving ahead. I think that would be an important thing to do.
There has been water tests done in, let's see, it's 89 South Bolton Road, and the way I'm aware of it is my daughter happens to live in that house. And part of the arrangement she has with the rental of it is it had a full scan done probably no more than 3 years ago. And it showed absolutely nothing as far as any organics that you would normally see in a water table. It has a high iron content, which is not unusual for soils of that nature. So I know at least 3 years ago, there was nothing in the water.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
has there been any water testing in the proposed areas?
No, because typically it's, the water test would be done when there's a well drilled. Oop.
Hi, if I could chime in, I'd like to.
Just a second, just a second. Okay, this is okay. Okay. Okay, yeah, so whoever has the 978 number is their ID here. Identify yourself and your address and.
Hi, calling from 127 South Bolton Road.
And your name
My name is Matt Johnson.
Okay.
My wife and I moved in here about 3.5 years ago. And one of the first things that we did when we were looking at properties is Google Earth. And, I saw that we had not many neighbors and something going on out in the woods, and no other concern than just try to see what the water was like. We had Neshoba Analytics test our water. We paid for the extensive tests here, actually.
Yep.
Having a newborn child at the time was, grave concern here. So when I received the results, I actually called Neshoba Analytics and asked that someone could help me understand what a lot of those variables and numbers meant. And they informed us that we had some of the cleanest drinking water that they had ever seen. And we have a shallow well here also. So, I mean, I don't think that would be a concern. It was to us, but you can take comfort in knowing that our well water is excellent. I just thought that you should know that.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so I think if there's no other questions or comments here for tonight, I think we need to continue this to see, get the responses to the peer review letter and review any other correspondence that come in between now and whether the next meeting, Valerie, or
I heard Jack say that it might be beneficial to wait longer than the next meeting. The next meeting is next week.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
So
yeah, okay.
I'm not going to be back from Florida until the 1st of March, basically. So if we can schedule for like the first meeting in March would be probably beneficial to all of us to get it done. Because I've got to be able to access some of my files back in my office to get the additional information that they want. So
With the wetlands area, is national natural heritage involved in any of this area?
national heritage,
Or
not that
natural heritage for endangered species or anything?
we haven't got that far with conservation. I don't believe it's on the maps in that area, but
Okay,
we could check.
yeah,
You know, there's a ton of work that still has to go once we get beyond what we're discussing tonight with conservation. Both for the common driveway, the house locations, runoff from the houses, all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure we're gonna, you know, attach all that information when we get that far down the road. I know from my viewpoint, and I'm sure it's with Chris's, we've put forward what we thought was the best solution to try and get what Chris needs and his family needs to do with this property. If this doesn't work, we're gonna go back and come up with another idea, but we'd like to get by this first before we get too deep into the issues with conservation.
yeah, I just don't want to lock in lot lines and such, and then turn around and find out that, half of the backland area for lot one is covered by a protection area and,
Yeah,
and things like that. So I just,
yeah. Well, knowing
I
that,
know you need to drive all these things forward all at the same time, I mean, yeah, if you can check the maps, if it's out of the maps, then you're good, then that's not a concern.
Yep.
Otherwise, it may impact, what you're planning here. So,
all right, I'll take a look at that and then see if I can get a concise answer for you for the next meeting too. So we'll know how that works.
okay.
My gut
One
feeling
more
is,
question.
from doing a lot of work in that area over the past 40 plus years, I don't think it intrudes on this property at all, but I'll check just to be sure.
Okay. Yeah, just one other thing. Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're not locking in something bad. Okay, any other comments from the board?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. Mr. Sergeant and Chris, I'm sorry, I don't have a last name on this one. Would there be any kind of cleanup? Because I mean, like myself, I know I have an old truck that is up on my my property as well. Would there be any type of cleanup effort whatsoever in terms of developing the
All right.
land?
I cannot speak for my brother Paul, but yes, absolutely. Most of that is equipment I used, ran. I have scrapped out actually quite a lot in the past. And it would all be gone now if I wasn't pronounced 90% dead just about 2 years ago. And I've been climbing out of the hole ever since. If I'm feeling well enough, I'm going to cut it and scrap it myself this summer. If I'm not, I'm going to hire someone to do it. It is all recyclable steel. The market is fairly good at the moment. It's worth shipping. And I definitely want to, I don't know if I'll finish it all, but I'm going to make one hell of a hole in it. There's no need of it to be there. But I don't think it's hurting anything while it's just sitting there.
Okay. Okay. Good. I guess I'll take
Mike Gore.
Yes.
Do I have to make that motion, Mark, or,
No, that would be the board would make a motion
Board
to
will make a
continue
motion.
it.
okay, you can, okay, I know in conservation, the applicant has to make the actual motion to continue.
I think you have to agree to continue it, but.
Yeah, okay, no problem,
Okay,
no problem.
okay.
Valerie, when's our next meeting after the 17th?
Would be the March
Seven.
9th.
I believe we'll have a public hearing at 7:30 already that night, so perhaps 8 or 8:15.
8:15?
Okay.
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 I'll make a motion to continue the backland lot special permit and common driveway special permit hearing for 89 to 91 South Bolton Road until March 9th at 8:15.
Second.
And those in favor, Mike Gore,
Aye.
Mark Sprague,
I,
Eric Neeland, Pete Driscoll,
Aye.
and Jim Barr. Thank you.
okay. Thank you. Okay, moving on to next item on the agenda is preliminary phase of phosphor development for South Bolton Road. And this, the applicant has requested we continue it to March 9th at 7:30. So I think I don't think there's anything that we need to do there. Okay.
Well, do we need to make a motion to continue that?
Yeah, okay.
I'll make a motion to continue the preliminary phase of Phosphorid at South Bolton Road, map 2C, parcel 23, until March 9th at 7:30.
I'll second.
And those in favor, Mike Gore,
Aye.
Mark Sprague,
All right,
Eric Neeland,
Aye.
Pete Driscoll,
Aye.
and Jim Barr. Thank you.
okay. So moving on with the business. So do we need to review?
You
and
done with
approve
me?
Chris, I am wondering if it is acceptable to you for the board to delay review and approval of the A&R plan until March 9th as well?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you. I was just going to ask that, so.
Oh, thanks.
Okay,
Okay, if you're done with me, I will go home.
I think you can go and take a rest, Chris. I think we're all set
Thank-
with you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I
Okay.
appreciate your help.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so next on the agenda is discussion of annual town meeting articles. Portable storage units, Central States Road acceptances.
Yes, I think we have our building inspector present to answer any questions about the portable storage unit bylaw. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Valerie.
Hey, Mike. So
you
what didn't
doing,
we,
Mike?
what didn't we tear apart last time we talked? So, so I think a couple of the questions that had come up,
If you want, Mark, I could give a kind
Yeah.
of a scenario maybe and how it came about and maybe.
sure.
So.
Yeah.
So basically, I've had several complaints, two from people either on a committee in town or a public official that lives in town. And this is in regards to storage containers such as pods and actual trailer bodies in commercial storage bins for that matter. Now, we know that most people use them during construction, which is fine. For agriculture, it's a great use for a lot of farms. In the commercial district, you find that these are generally regulated under a site plan review, as you would know, similar to where your trash bin would be left, in
and, you know, to be covered in the parking lot on a permanent basis. So in the commercial district, there wouldn't really be much of a need to regulate them because they're somewhat already regulated under the site plan review and the like. So I did get a few calls in of the unsightliness of these, call them pods or storage containers. And it's not so much the pods when people are moving. It's the ones that are being dropped off and left in someone's home for a year, or they become permanent structures. When I was the full-time building official over in Lunenburg, I had a gentleman that actually wanted to use one as a shed, and it was basically a trailer body. And we didn't allow storage containers for that use in the residential district. So having a couple of complaints, I looked through the bylaw to see if there was something I could hang my hat on, go to the individual's homes and just express that, you know, where it would be in the bylaw, where it might be prohibited, and then, you know, in all reasonableness, they'd be able to use it, but they were regulated, and I could not find anything that actually regulated those. So if I was to, under the guise of unsightliness, which is kind of like what we almost heard about at the last hearing, these things become a health, safety, and welfare issue, and it involves people's personal property. So even when you have these old so-called dump sites and things of the nature, you know, sometimes those things are actually hard to regulate, and we were finding that out because it's personal property. And in the like, when you have these storage containers and pods, and again, pods you're going to see come and go because people move, but those that stay on a permanent basis, you got 2 or 3 of them in town now. And if you were to allow that to continue, because it apparently appears to be a nuisance for the unsightliness of them, then I think we need some form of regulation on them, similar to what we do for the temporary trailers and temporary tent permits. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that someone has to go through the extent of taking a permit, because most of the public will never know the bylaws, and they will never know of that one especially, and they would just think it's a matter of course. So I mentioned it to Valerie that you guys may want to consider that, because I had no enforcement ability on those. And again, getting the 2 calls that I did, I tried to track it down, and I just had no enforcement on that under the bylaw. Now, when somebody has a storage container that they're using as a garage, which has specifics relative to the building code on how they have to be because there's gasoline in them, you know, you could have people storing cars in them, or storing, again, personal property, but again, laid by the side of the house. Does it meet the offset to the property line? You know, we have a definition of structures that are things that are attached to the ground, and also include mechanical equipment, but these aren't attached to the ground, so they're hard to regulate if they're on the property line or close to it. So the long and the short of it is that I think we need some form of regulation if the town so decides that they would like to regulate them, because once you got a dozen of them going on more of a permanent basis, and it takes time for that to happen, but in time it creeps up, we'll have a harder time enforcing the policing of it. And I thought that and again, the enforcement of that would be not under so much a building permit to have one, but if it does surface, if we do get a complaint that it's unsightly, because a lot of them, we may not know where they are, because they're on a back common drive, and unless you go down that half-mile common drive, you're not going to see it. So I thought that just if I had something to hang my hat on, or the next building official had something to hang his hat on, when we got the complaints of the unsightliness, like we have in the past on trailers, there's something to regulate it, and it would be simply me going up to the individual's home and expressing to them and showing them the bylaw. And then once it's brought to their attention, I could say, look, we can start the clock today, but you got 30 days, or you have 90 days, whatever the town would so desire, if they decide that they want this bylaw or something similar. And at least we know that they're not going to be there forever, because quite frankly, they're probably not meant for the residential district on the permanent basis. And that's why other towns have those bylaws. The one that I
Okay.
gave Valerie came out of Dover, Maryland, Delaware, the
Okay.
one that you guys looked at.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I see. I think a lot of our concerns were addressed in the new draft. I guess my one question is, how is an active building permit defined, and how long can I have a building permit open? So could I use that to say, if I've got 5 years for a building permit, can I have a storage container there for 5 years while that's active?
Welcome to my world. So anyway, yeah, hard thing to regulate again. So basically, yeah, building permit, once you obtain a building permit, you have a right to exercise it within 6 months. And that's because the code may change and they want to make sure you're under the most current code. You didn't wait 3 years to build something under an old code. So you receive a building permit and you have 6 months in which to start. The building code says that once you start, as long as there is reasonable progression in the eyes of the building official and kind of similar words, you just proceed your project. Some people slow down, they go to Florida for the winter. Some people, due to COVID, we found out how things are delayed. They can't get the materials. So yeah, it's a tough thing to regulate, Mark. And that's a really good question because, yeah, how long do you let somebody go? I know someone in Lunenburg, they were building a house for over 10 years, and these things take years to happen and they sometimes take time to clean up. So with the conjunction of a building permit, in all reasonableness, most people complete their projects in a reasonable time. There's some that hang out there and linger, no matter where you live or what community you're in. Some projects just die right off and end up getting sold. So basically, again, time-wise on it, I'd be approaching it like I approach every other issue that I need to approach in the town. And that would be have a very, respectable discussion with the homeowner and see where they're at and how they're doing. And I would push it along. And I would say, look, it might take you 10 years to build your house, but that means you need a smaller dumpster, because you're not doing that much work. So maybe you take the big one out of here. And, so there's the give and take that you have to put into that aspect of the job also. So to answer your question, 6 months to start, keep making progress and keep the building official happy. And you're going to just keep building until you're done.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to think if there's a way that somebody could say, well, I can buy one of these things for a few $1,000s versus, spending, as opposed to putting up, building a real shed or adding on a bay to the garage or something, which would cost a lot more. So can I just string that along with come into you, say, I want a building permit for a 10 by 40 shed or 20 by 40 shed, and then just string along and not really do anything with it for 4 or 5 years. And then,
Well, can I say something? So,
Yeah.
Mike, I was wondering, because you have 120 square feet that you don't have to pull a permit for.
It's 200. That was amended a few years back. It's 200 square feet or less for sheds, playhouses, and similar structures.
Okay, so I think it might have been Mike that had Michael Gore that had mentioned the fact about property lines and stuff like that. Was that you, Michael?
I mentioned
Yeah.
I mentioned the property lines.
No,
Okay,
no,
just-
that's
right.
at our last meeting, I think. I mean, in
Oh,
general,
at the last meeting. Okay.
yeah. I mean, in
Yes,
general,
yes,
my
I'm sorry.
first, I don't think, storage containers are a huge problem, first off. And I want to be careful about saying that no one can have them, especially when we're saying that, the municipalities can have them, and we know the athletic fields have them. Like they're very useful to have. And if someone wanted to have a container in the back of their property, I don't have a huge concern with that. What we talked about was
if someone, having temporary containers when it's visible out front, right? When someone leaves a container in their driveway, right? But if someone has one in their backyard, similar to a shed, I'm less concerned about that. I don't see that as a huge issue.
Yeah, I understand that point with it. Keeping in mind that when you get to things, when you start looking at the building code, and you get the exemptions, and like if somebody's sticking a car in it, let's say somebody's got two cars, which is, I suspect that that's possible in one instance in town. So now you have two cars in a storage container that's not even doesn't say the word pod on it. It's the big long one, right?
Yeah.
That you see them on Hudson Road before Century Mill. So what if they have cars in there? Well, you're using it as a garage, and the building code says that you have to have a slope on the surface of the garage so the fluids go to the front. It's not exempt. A structure like that, any structure that is used for garaging purposes is not exempt from the regulations of a garage, even though 200 square feet or less, sheds and similar structures, and it specifically says in that exemption, but not garages. So that's an example of if someone has a car in it. Now, a good point was made, a good point came up about what if I want to, make a shed out of it? Well, when I was the full-time building official in Lunenburg, right near the center of town, we had a gentleman that had probably about a 40-footer, and he had it in his backyard, and he said, Mike, I want to use it as a shed. And I looked at the bylaw, and we did have something in place that said that those type of containers were not allowed on a permanent basis in the residential district. And I said, well, are you going to cut windows in it? Are you going to cut a new door in it? Are you going to cover it with some type of siding to make it look like a shed? Because right now a duck is a duck. And if it's a storage bin, and I look at it and it's a storage bin, it's a storage bin. If it's a storage bin and you want to make it look like a ranch home in your backyard and you trim it out, you put a little roof on it or something, yeah, I could kind of accept that as being somebody's shed if it was converted to a shed. But until it's converted, a duck is a duck and a storage bin is a storage bin. Should people be able to have them? Yeah, I think so. On a temporary basis, especially. On a permanent basis in some districts, in some zoning districts, on a permanent basis. Agriculture, absolutely. Commercial, regulated by special permit, needed, absolutely. Government functions, government buildings, the schools, the athletics, all of that stuff, exempt. But when you have one in the residential district, if the town wants me to police, because I get the complaints, if they want me to do something about it, I need something. And I'm not, and people know I'm in town that in a friendly manner, I'm not afraid to enforce the bylaws. It's just, I need some teeth to enforce. And we have nothing that regulates the storage bins. We don't have a drastic problem with it, but it was something that came up several times with phone calls, a couple by the same individual and another phone call by another individual. These are people that get involved in the town, and I
But not the
had to
neighbors,
tell them
right?
both. I had to tell
You
them
didn't
both
have
that I had
complaints
no.
from neighbors, Mike?
Excuse me?
You didn't have complaints from neighbors? Wasn't neighbors making these
No,
complaints?
no. So I thought maybe because of where it came from, that maybe the town may want to have to look at that, because in order for any zoning enforcement officer to do something about a complaint like that, you have to have something that you can show the public that enforces it. And again, it would be in a friendly way. In other words, let's say you had one on the side of your house. I'd come by and say, geez, you realize you can't have those for more than so many days? We got a call. How long have you had it here? Well, I just got it dropped off. Well, whether it's been here a year or not, why don't we start the clock today? Now I show you the bylaw. You can keep it for 90 days unless it's in conjunction with something you're doing that's permitted. So again, I only threw it out there. Whether the town wants to do it or not, whether the planning board even wants to present it or not, is up to the planning board and the town to vote on it. All I'm doing is because it's been brought to my attention that this is becoming problematic with phone calls, that maybe you want to take a look at it at this time, and maybe you want to push it off, and maybe you want to see if it gets any worse. A lot of these things take care of themselves in time, But if it was to get worse, now it becomes harder to enforce. The more and more of them that you have, you got to start chasing this thing down, and it becomes, I'm dealing with a few issues now in town, all relative to the same type of use. And it's very problematic. And I've been working on some of it for well over a year or two.
Mike, what's the use for it? What are they saying?
Excuse me?
What are they saying? What's the use for? Is it for a garage?
No, that's just it. I mean, it's the code regulates garages, but what these people are using them for, I don't know, because I don't open them up and I don't tell the people to get rid of them because I have no enforcement on them.
Mike,
And
can I ask
again,
you-
it's not rampant. We have 2 or 3 of them in town that I'm aware of. And outside of that,
Can I ask you a
I
quick
just
question?
thought, since we do
Mike?
have it, yep.
So on a storage shed that's less than 200 feet, somebody could park a car in it, right?
Technically,
that
they could technically, but it would be a code violation. 200
So-
square feet or less, don't forget, the exemption, when you build a garage, it's a
Yeah.
garage. When you house a motor vehicle, it is a garage, or should be a garage that you put it in. If you were to take a shed, 200 square feet or less in footprint, a shed is exempt from a building permit, 200 square feet or less. You still have to meet the offsets. So I tell people when they call and ask about them, I ask them how big. I tell them if they go bigger and something happens, and if they don't place it with the proper setback, or if they're not cognizant and have checked with conservation or the Board of Health, then they may end up moving it even though it didn't need a permit, because I wouldn't be going out there because there'd be no permit associated with it. It's an inquiry. So keep in mind, people can use a room for anything they want, and they can use a shed for anything they want. But if they use it as a garage, it's supposed to be built by the specifications of the code to build a garage, and there are specific specifications. That's not my primary concern. My primary concern
because
with it
Mike,
is-
sorry to interrupt,
Yep.
but I mean, so you would be able to enforce someone parking in a storage container today because of that, right? Because
Well, that came up on one of
if they
the
parked a
issues.
car in it.
Yeah, so exactly. And I said, and when I went through the bylaw on one of these issues that we're speaking of tonight, that I found the very same thing. I had gone there in the past to police cars, and then the storage bins had shown up, and I can only assume that they may have cars in them. And when I was asked to find out what was going on that property through the phone call, I went over there, and when I researched the bylaw, I found that the enforcement of motor vehicles, unregistered vehicles, or the storage of unregistered vehicles, at least in plain sight, and that gets to a whole nother issue. I don't think you have the plain sight thing in your bylaw, but that's regulated by the police. It's a $20 a day fine in Bolton, and they regulate unregistered vehicles. So I had mentioned to the individual that had called inquiring, I said, maybe that is a way to enforce these containers. If there are vehicles in it, something might be able to be done. However, the container is not the issue. It's the vehicle being unregistered if it triggers, because it is not in sight. But yeah, it's a tough one. And like I said, we don't have a lot of them, but I'd hate to see a dozen of them out there, and then we're scrambling trying to get them moved, and you come up with a bylaw later on down the line that, technically is somebody grandfathered.
That's a tough one, Mike.
I know, believe me, I know. I've been dealing with it.
Yeah.
And again, and you guys, as a board may decide, something, let's see what happens. Let it go a little bit longer. See if these take care of themselves. I got a feeling, one of them could and may have already. I haven't been down that road in a while. And there's a couple that may never change, but I think the town's been used to looking at them maybe for a long time.
So we were even talking about at our last meeting, allowing a permanent storage shed like that with proper setbacks from the front and the side. And allowing one, I mean, we were just throwing it out there, like allowing one of those permanent ones. You know, we didn't really have the car storage in mind when we were saying that. But I don't know how you would really enforce if somebody parked a car in a 190 square foot, you know, built shed anyway. So
Yeah, you
I don't
know,
know.
those are things that are very difficult to enforce. I mean,
Yeah,
you have to know that it's there to begin with, and then you're going to have to want to move forward to enforce it. And then with all types of enforcement, depending on how it's done, you know, I've been pretty fortunate the way I handle things to get things cleaned up, and they've been able to escape, you know, court, you know, appeals and things like that. But people can challenge.
So you're saying there's 2 or 3 of these in town right now?
Yeah, there's a couple of sites that I'm aware of that have them.
I mean, if it's not proliferating, I mean, I don't know that we need to make a bylaw for, you know, 2 or 3. You know, that's how we've erred in the past. I mean, if it's not a major issue, you know, maybe we hold off.
Yeah, I mean, if again,
the flip side to that is, you know, when there become, you know, 20 or 30 of them out there, because people say, you know, for cheap, I can, you know, build a shed, or, you know, have a shed delivered.
Yeah, that's where it's at, really. It's
it's not happening though. You know,
no,
if it starts happening,
another year. You may want to wait a year or 2 and see. I think you've got a valid point, and you may want to wait a year or 2 and see if we get complaints on others, or if these are isolated incidences, which should take care of themselves in time. You know, property owner moves, they go away. Somebody else that had one there for a year, maybe at some point he's done with it and it goes away. So again, if you want to enforce those at this point in time, I'm just saying that I need something on paper that allows me to enforce it. If it's the sentiment of the board and of the town at this time, and at least the board, because you put the article in front of them, and it doesn't get in front of them, that's all well and good with me. I'm just trying to be proactive instead of reactive, and I can sit and wait. And if it doesn't get any worse, I'm a happy camper, as everybody else would be. And we could address this if it becomes, you know, more than what is palatable. Right now, it is not out of control. I'm just trying to get something to nip it in the bud before it gets out of control. But if you want to go further on this, we could definitely wait. It doesn't need to be done today at the town meeting, the annual. It can be done at a later date if it seems like it gets worse, and it may not be any worse than what it is now.
I mean, do we need to say that it has to be on a solid foundation?
They're not things that go on. They're temporary structures.
If it's temporary,
just like your trailers. Trailers allowed in time on a temporary basis for only so many days at a time. But again, I'm just I brought it to Valerie's attention. We talked about it. I gave her a model that you guys could go by. And if the board feels that at this point, you know, well, you know, good point taken, then take it no further than that. And it's not going to bother me either way. I'm just trying to be proactive instead of reactive. And I don't think it's a bad problem at this point. Again, there's a couple of them out there. It may never get any worse, but I have to bring it to someone's attention when I'm asked to do something and I can't do it.
No, I love it. I mean, I'm
just asking for a mechanism to do it. Or believe me, I don't need the work. I don't need the work.
Hey,
No,
Mike, can you forward complaints that you get? Can you forward them to Valerie so she can forward them to us in the future?
Yes.
Or collect them up?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we can document that stuff. Absolutely.
Yeah, because it's easy just to call up Eagle Lease, and I might have.
Yeah, I mean, we can, you know, you guys may want to wait on it, you know, and just address it if it becomes worse. And it may not become any worse. But again, the biggest thing is if I'm asked to do something and I have no way to do it, I don't want it to look like I'm not doing
there
my
has
job.
to be some sort of a there has to be sort of a plan in place that, okay, listen, you're gonna drop this on your property for a little while, store what you need to store, and then it's gone. And as long as I'm okay with leaving it for a little while and let's see what happens. I agree with Mike on that one. And if it gets too out of hand, then we'll have to be proactive, because
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
no issues with
you're-
that, and I would agree. I would
110%
agree.
right, Mike. Thank
At
you.
least it's been brought up so that we
Yep.
know where we stand with them, and I'll continue to do the best I can under the circumstances. And again, it's not an issue other than the fact that a couple of complaints, so I try to follow up on it. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If you-
because
if you-
I know if I had a couple of my neighbors or whatever, dropping the Drago, we call them Drago boxes, or Connex boxes onto the site, or onto your property, it might be a little uneasy.
Well, at least on a permanent basis. If it was there for a permanent basis, it would be, you got to look at your property values and the aesthetics and things like that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
all.
I think the board needs to decide whether to move forward with this or not. I mean, if we decide to table it for this year, Mike, now you can, if anybody calls and complains, then you can say, well, planning board decided not to move forward with that, so go complain to them. So,
No, I wouldn't do that. I'd do that. I'd still talk to them about getting rid of it.
yeah.
But no, I think that's wise, Mark. I think it's wise the way, the biggest thing is at least it's on the radar, at least for
Yeah.
discussion.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Mike.
Mike.
Yeah, I take no offense if you guys don't put it on. I'm good with it. No problem.
Okay. I mean, we've got the draft here, so if it comes up, it becomes more of an issue, then we've got language in place.
Perfect.
Okay, so what does the board
Thanks,
want to
Mike.
do? Do you want to? Thanks, Mike. Do we
Okay, I'm
wanna-
all set. I can leave.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
you can
good,
stick
I'm good.
around if you want. Yeah.
Take care. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Mike.
Take care, Valerie. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks. See you.
Yeah, take care, everyone.
Okay, so what does the board want to do? Do we want to move forward with this, or do we want to table it for the year?
I'm in favor of tabling it for now. We can do a little more research. I mean, maybe the compromise is we reduce, we restrict the size of anything permanent, right? So now you can't have a 40-foot, container on your property, right? But maybe something under 200 square feet is fine if you meet the sight lines.
Yeah, I agree. Like basically same thing with the sheds, if it's under 200 square feet and keep setbacks from the front and the sides, I don't see an issue with it, but I don't think we need to rush into it this year.
No, I agree.
Okay, we just get some motion to just table this for this year.
I might just
Oh,
interject
yeah.
that
Okay, yeah.
we do have the public hearing scheduled for next Thursday. Of course, we can always, cancel it. It could be useful to see if any residents come to that. If it turns out to be something that has some traction, or if there are further comments from residents that may help us craft it a little differently in the future, if this does become more of an issue that could be useful.
Okay.
I don't think we want to hold a hearing like a fishing kind of expedition. I mean, when we go to the hearing, I want to go forward with a bylaw that we're confident in. I mean, the terms of the current bylaw aren't, what we were just even talking about. So I don't think it makes sense to do it personally.
Yeah, because you would need to use what was in the article that you put which outright bans them.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
We can edit it a bit from that, I believe. So, but yes, you're right. I mean, generally, it couldn't change too much.
Yeah. I don't think we need to do it. I don't know how much interest we would get from that, but
Okay. All right, that
Yeah.
sounds good. Yeah.
Okay,
I'll make the meeting next week a little bit quicker.
yeah. Okay. So we need a motion to table this for the year, or we'll just move,
So,
I don't think I need a motion at this point. I feel like it would be supported
think-
through the public hearing, and if we don't get to that process, I think that's okay. If you'd like to make it formal and have a vote, it doesn't hurt.
I'll make a motion
Yeah.
to table a possible town meeting warrant article for regulation of portable storage units for this year.
Second.
And those in favor, Pete Driscoll,
Aye.
Mark Sprague,
Aye.
Mike Gore,
Aye.
Eric Neeland, and Jim Barr.
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Okay. On the other piece on the town meeting articles is the CME road acceptance.
Right, so I did draft an article for road acceptance of the 3 roads within phases 2 and 4 of Century Mill Estate subdivision. We can't yet move forward with it without being able to make a plan reference, reference to the title of it, the date of it. So we're ready to go if the developer, if the applicant is, but at this point, I don't know if it's, we're not able to discuss it because we don't have an as-built plan that's been reviewed by the peer reviewer. So if
Okay.
something comes up within the next week, it will be on the agenda for February 17th. But again, there's not much more I feel like we can really discuss here. I will just note for anyone who may be resident of the area that next week, the planning board is not meeting on Wednesday, we're meeting on Thursday. So it's a bit of a change, but will be Thursday.
Okay. Let's see here. So approval of the planning board annual report. Everybody read it and did anybody read it? I did, but anybody else look it over?
yeah, I looked it through. Looked good.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, me
Sounds
too.
much more impressive when Valerie rates it all out like that than when you think about what we've done. So, okay.
So do you want to take Danielle's name off of there, or is it considered open seat?
I can ask the town clerk what to do in that situation. It is a bit complicated because, I mean, she was on the board for that full year, though,
Oh,
for anyone reading it, it might
Yeah,
seem
yeah.
confusing, and we do want to,
No, you're right. That makes sense. Yeah, if this is looking at last year. Yep.
I'll still ask the town clerk though, just to make sure, see what's best.
Yeah, I don't know whether just adding a paragraph in the membership and organization that she did resign, and that the seat it will be up for election or something. But yeah, Pam will be able to set, figure out what to do there. So, okay. So other than that, any questions or thoughts on that?
We need to make a motion to approve this.
Yes, that'd be good.
I will make a motion to approve the planning board annual report for 2021.
Second.
And those in favor, Pete Driscoll.
Aye.
Mark Sprague,
Aye.
Mike Gore,
Aye.
Eric Neeland,
I,
and Jim Barr.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. And then the last thing on the agenda for tonight is everything that Valerie's going to do this year.
It is just a draft. Let's see.
Oh, so we can add to it. Okay, excellent.
Right. Right. Well, actually, yes, that is the intent here. I did want to ask if there are initiatives that I'm missing, or I've already thought of a zoning bylaw that I did miss. I did not include the consideration of split zones. So that will also be on there as well.
Okay.
What is, I don't know if this is the time to get into it, but what were you thinking about with the accessory apartment rules and regs? Are we changing something with that?
We don't have them right now. And I was wondering if that might be a good thing to have, if there's more that we might want to include in terms of design standards or.
Oh, I see.
Right.
Because we allow them
We
now,
allow
both
them
attached and detached now.
attached with certain provisions by right, but detached through special permit.
And right now we kind of default as long as the building inspector, as long as they meet building code, we don't have any real restrictions on them. So,
Yep.
Okay.
But that's just we may look into it and decide that it's not needed, But I thought it would be useful to look at what other towns do and see what more we could add.
Okay. And the marijuana establishment rules and regs.
Exactly, right. We don't have
don't have
those yet either, right? And that one may come up quicker than other rules and regs to add, as we do have a signed host community agreement. So that may be more of a short-term goal, so that when that establishment comes forward, we're not only using the what we have in terms of special permits through the industrial district, but we actually have more that's specifically geared towards marijuana establishments.
Okay.
Hey, Valerie, what about on subdivisions? I know we've talked about in the past, like especially when it came to Keys Farm, how they completely clear cut everything. I don't know if there was any way in the rules and regs to mark trees of significant diameter and discuss those before they just clear everything. Like, I don't know if there's any way.
Yes, absolutely. So that is something I feel should not only be in the rules and regs, but should be a zoning bylaw, so that it really has more teeth and can't just be ignored. So I think I am looking into tree protection bylaws, and the consultants that are currently working with the Conservation Commission on the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Project might be able to draft up examples of those as well. So that process will hopefully kind of align with that. But I absolutely agree, there needs to be more done there. And I'm thinking too that through a more robust and any kind of erosion control bylaw, we could also kind of get at the issue there as well, because you wouldn't want to just clear cut a hill.
Yeah, that would be part of it. I mean, Keys Farm is just eroding away,
Yes.
but if they kept trees of 12-inch diameter or bigger, or we marked them and we were able to, determine if it was a critical tree in erosion control or not,
Yeah,
it definitely seems like we need more control from the start, because the developers are very willing to just clear the entire parcel.
Mhm.
Some do, some don't, but yeah, it's, I guess similar or along those same lines and from the same source here. Do we want to do anything with driveways? Permits, rules, regs, requirements?
It did seem that the way subdivisions function in terms of the driveway bylaw is confusing. And that does need to be reworked. So I should add that on there as well. And I think the DPW director is in favor of that as well. Particularly in the case of a subdivision road that does not get accepted at town meeting, it essentially functions as a driveway. So
Right, so a lot of times they design the roads within to be like the whole runoff plan, but then it doesn't jive with the actual, if it becomes a public road, it doesn't match up, it seems.
right.
Well, and as we saw, it keys that, that the driveway cuts and the driveways themselves were, what was shown on the permit was kind of loose suggestion, not actually what they were planning on building, and didn't necessarily meet, since there's no rules and regs, again, like the building inspector can't look and say you didn't put down, it's not wide enough, it doesn't meet whatever other requirements there are there. So, it might be worth, taking a look at whether we want to tighten that up some.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good.
I mean, in general, it would be good to do kind of a post-mortem on Keys Farms and CME. I mean, even though they're still going, but like, where did we run into problems with these? And, what could we have done better?
Yeah.
Like maybe some of the bond release stuff, do we have any room to improve that sort of stuff, whether it's reducing the number of bond release requests they can make throughout the period of a thing, or I don't know. I mean, our hands were just tied too many times with these subdivisions.
I have spoken to town council about that point in particular, and he is in agreement that we could include something in the subdivision rules and regs that say bond reductions can only happen after 20% of work is completed. So you'd have a maximum of 5 bond reductions, or say maximum 20 every time at every quarter of completion of construction. So you'd only have 4. So it is possible to have language like that.
And how about having, but we still would need to have kind of the very specific language around it's X number of dollars for this many trees, and it's this amount of money for so much pay. Like, we still need to have specific line by line and release it on a line by line basis, right? There's no working around that.
No.
Okay.
No.
And everything in the bonds has always been attached specifically to the roads, it seemed. I mean, one of the things that keys is that there's the drainage wasn't necessary. The drainage basins and stuff weren't necessarily covered by the bond.
Right.
So I don't know whether there's some, whether we need to look at the bond being more inclusive to all site development work.
And that was the problem, right? The drainage on people's parcels, not necessarily drainage out the driveway, but like on their lawns, for example. And
yeah, or pooling in their backyards, or I mean, even was it basin 3, which is the one at the bottom of the bottom deck, where it's now basically a constructed wetland instead of actually a drainage structure. With the answer as well, it's, so I mean, that's something that will need to be addressed at some point with there, but I think spending a little bit of time, kind of from the planning board perspective, what went right or wrong in, I mean, the 4 or 5 recent ones, CME, Keys, I mean, I'd say Houghton Farm, but we never heard from them. They just kind of did everything the way that they were supposed to. Maybe, the same thing with kind of Powers Lane.
Mm-hmm.
Once, and there we did early on work with them and work on keeping as many, as much of the trees and stuff as we could. And again, they just kind of went off and did what they needed to. And then, Tadmore is the other recent one. Yes, I think, kind of going through a handful of those just to, even if they're still ongoing, just, kind of understanding where we are and where, what's gone right or wrong so far, might be worth some of it, some time.
But do we have any, are there any major subdivisions on the radar this year? Like, I mean, I guess besides the phosphid on South Bolton, right? Which that's not huge, but it's.
You mean for any that may come through permitting?
Just what are the big developments? Do we have any big developments coming up this year on the radar?
We have, it would be that the phosphid off of South Bolton Road. I've also been discussing with a couple of different individuals, different parties, the potential for a 60 unit age restricted subdivision off West Berlin Road. And the potential for the Kane property.
Which lot is that? Is that
that's 22.
Near Waterquad? Is that near Waterquadock?
Sorry, what did you say?
It's
West Berlin.
Where on West Berlin?
22 West Berlin Road. There's a farm there that's been on for sale for some time.
Okay, that's the one right next to Waterquadock Road.
Yeah.
22, right? You said?
22.
Yeah.
And the developers of the Kane land, they're considering a warehouse, but then they're also considering resident development. I'm not sure the number of units I saw on that plan, but so that there are a couple on the radar, but I don't know. I know that 22 West Berlin Road's been discussed with many different developers, so I don't know what the timeline there might be.
Sure.
And then there's the potential, of course, if we do expand the mixed use district, but that wouldn't be this year.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, back to the work plan. So I think that covers the zoning amendments and additions, planning initiatives. So the master plan, sure will suck up a good chunk of your time.
Yes. And especially when it's definitely useful to have consultants provide technical assistance. It does increase administrative work there. So I think 8 hours a week is probably less than what it's going to turn out to be. So I'm assuming about 25% of my time will be spent on master plan work.
Okay. Okay. And then some grant work and some other. Okay.
Valerie, is there any chance we see 58 Cobham Road marijuana thing this year or no? Special permit?
Which address was that?
Cobham, Main Street, sorry, 58 Main Street.
Oh yeah, sorry. I'm still not familiar with the some of the vocabulary. The local knowledge. Yes.
Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. So they did sign a host community agreement at the end of last year. So I do expect them to be coming forward at some point. I don't really know how long it takes these days to get through the Cannabis Control Commission. So
basically they have a host community impact agreement or whatever. So they take that back to the state and then they have to get something from the state to move forward again.
Exactly. Yes. So fortunately, we are quite protected by the state's guidelines and law. So they will need to get their license through the state first prior to submitting an application for a special permit.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to create an index with description to the actual address?
I'm learning some of
Well,
them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, in all of the past, so yeah, is it
yeah,
Column or Atlantic Microwave, and is it
yeah.
Skinner.
Paragon or Future?
Skinner, yeah.
Yeah.
Skinner, yeah, or the pool company. Yeah, there's a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good. Let's see, additional planning, transportation.
These ones, this list under additional planning, these are all stretch goals. So, so if, if there's a push for some of them regionally, hopping on a regional grant, or if there's an opportunity that presents itself, these are all things that are definitely on my radar, and I would love to be able to work on.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So it sounds like there are a few things I've missed in here in terms of zoning and permitting changes or work. But please let me know if there are other planning efforts or planning initiatives that you feel like the board should be involved in, or you might like to know more about. You can definitely think about how to add more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Any other questions on the work plan? No? Okay. Well, believe it or not, that's the end of the agenda.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you next Thursday.
Have a good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, you too.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.